Fellow global citizens, even the architects of the old order now admit it is collapsing. What comes next is our choice. When the German president, Frank-Walter Steinmeier, warns that the world risks becoming a den of thieves, where the unscrupulous take what they want and weaker states are left unprotected, it should give us pause. Not because the diagnosis is new, but because of who is making it. Steinmeier speaks not from the margins of the global system, but from its very heart. Germany is one of the principal beneficiaries and custodians of the post-Second World War international order. More importantly, Steinmeier speaks from within a social democratic tradition that helped shape that order, a tradition rooted in internationalism, multilateralism, and the belief that power must be restrained by shared rules. When such a voice acknowledges that we are far beyond lamenting the erosion of international law, it confirms what many in the global south have long argued. The old global social contract is no longer fraying, it has collapsed. The significance of Steinmeier's remarks lies in their honesty. He does not cloak the crisis in diplomatic euphemisms. He recognizes that power is no longer restrained by rules, that regions are again being treated as property, and that even medium-sized states now fear marginalization. This is not the language of reform. It is the language of breakdown. For decades, global leaders insisted that the rules-based order merely needed strengthening or adjustment. But selective application of international law, unilateral military action, and institutional paralysis, particularly within the UN system, have hollowed out its legitimacy. When the same rules are invoked to discipline some states and ignored by others, consent evaporates. What remains is leverage, not law. Steinmeier is also unusually candid in identifying responsibility. His observation that the United States has broken with values it once helped establish is not an anti-American gesture. It is a sober recognition that when powerful states abandon restraint, the entire system unravels. Others will follow, not out of malice, but out of necessity. This is the danger point in history. Not chaos yet, but acceleration toward it. Yet where Steinmeier's warning ends, a larger global conversation must begin. A collapsing order creates fear for medium-sized states and vulnerability for smaller ones. But it also creates space to renegotiate how power, technology, and resources are governed in the 21st century. That recognition and that renegotiation cannot be value neutral. One of the central failures of the current order is the erosion of solidarity in international relations. Solidarity, a foundational principle of social democracy, once underpinned internationalism by recognizing that security, prosperity, and dignity are indivisible. Its retreat has produced the opposite: inward-looking nationalism, transactional alliances, and blocs of countries pursuing narrow self-interest at the expense of collective stability. Without solidarity, internationalism collapses into competition. This is where the global social democratic movement has a critical role to play. Spanning continents and political cultures, social democratic parties and movements have historically been the strongest advocates of multilateral cooperation, social justice, and rules-based governance. In a fractured world, they remain uniquely positioned to articulate and advance a new global social contract grounded not in dominance, but in fairness, mutual responsibility, and shared restraint. This is particularly true for Africa. For much of modern history, Africa has experienced global order not as protection, but as extraction. From the Berlin Conference to contemporary mineral supply chains, the continent has been treated as a source of inputs rather than a shaper of rules. Steinmeier's phrase, regions treated as property, resonates deeply with this history. But the fourth industrial revolution changes this equation. The energy transition, digital infrastructure, electric mobility, and advanced manufacturing all depend on minerals overwhelmingly found in Africa. Lithium, cobalt, manganese, and rare earths are no longer peripheral commodities. They are strategic assets. Without them, there is no green transition and no technological future. This reality gives Africa leverage, not to threaten, but to negotiate. A new global social contract cannot simply reproduce old hierarchies under new names. It must confront the unsustainability of permanent veto power, selective legality, and exclusionary governance. A world that is economically multipolar and technologically decentralized cannot be governed by institutions designed in 1945 for a handful of victors. Without rules that apply to all, no one is safe, not even the strongest. Steinmeier understands this. His fear of a lawless world is shared across continents. The difference now is that more voices, including from the core of the old order, are saying it aloud. The choice before us is stark. Either we drift into a future defined by predation, blocks, and insecurity, the den of thieves Steinmeier warns against, or we begin the difficult but necessary work of negotiating a new, inclusive, and enforceable global social contract. That negotiation must include Africa not as a menu, but as a diner. It must be informed by the social democratic value of solidarity, recognizing that legitimacy flows from consent, not cohesion, from fairness, not privilege, from shared rules, not selective power. History will not forgive denial, but it may yet reward courage.